Now, with the day's top national and international news, John Suchet.
Schoolboy shot as Washington sniper strikes again. Let's bury nasty image, says Tories woman in black. Family mourn the man who tried to stop a mobile theft. And the shuttle takeoff, as you've never seen it before.
The ITV News with John Suchet.
Good evening. The fear of a murdering marksman that has gripped the suburbs around Washington, D.C. rose another notch today. The reason? A 13-year-old boy was shot arriving at school with his aunt from long range. He's in a critical condition. Police said in the last hour that the bullet removed from his body was the same as those used in the 6 random murders in a neighbouring county. Robert Moore is at the school tonight. Robert.
Yes, John, the confirmation came in the last hour from ballistic experts who said that the shooting here at this school in Maryland was indeed the work of the sniper who has terrorised Washington's suburbs over the last week. Now, police, John, have very few clues and absolutely no eyewitnesses. The fear is now spread across the region's schools, with young pupils being evacuated in the aftermath of today's shooting. As police raced to the scene, speculation mounted that the sniper responsible for the killings last week had struck again. Anxious parents came to pick up their children. There's a lot of anxiety in this community.
Yes, it's horrible. I grew up around here, and kids shouldn't have to grow up with this kind of stuff.
People crying and people comforting each other, but the teachers are outside in the hallway just patrolling the area, make sure no kids are out.
Do you fear it might be terrorism?
I believe it is. I've talked to friends of mine, and I believe that it could be something related to Al-Qaeda.
The police investigating the sniper are frustrated by the absence of eyewitnesses. And today, the police chief, at times in tears, appealed to parents.
Now, all of our victims have been innocent, have been defenseless. But now we're stepping over the line because our children don't deserve this. So parents, please do your job tonight. Engage your children. Be there for them.
Over the last week, 8 people have been shot, 6 of them killed, and at least 5 are linked to the same high-velocity rifle. All have been around the Washington, D.C. area. The first came on Wednesday evening when a man was killed in a car park in Wheaton, Maryland. By midnight on Thursday, another 5 were dead, most killed in the Maryland suburbs north of the city. On Friday, the shootings moved further afield, to Virginia, where a woman was shot in the back. But today, the terror returned to Maryland and the town of Bowie. The idea of a sniper striking ordinary people as they go about their daily lives has terrified many people here. Police have displayed guns similar to the one that they believe is involved in the killings. And as detectives struggle to hunt down the gunman, the victims he so brutally and inexplicably gunned down last week are being buried. Well, investigators here remain deeply baffled as to the psychological profile and motive of the killer. Of course, many people here deeply fearful that he will strike again, and police trying to counter that, urging them to stay vigilant but calm. And now back to you, John, in the studio.
Robert Moore. Here, the Conservative Party was told a few home truths by its chairman today. Theresa May, dressed as somberly as her message, said many people saw them as the nasty party, with politicians in the past who had behaved disgracefully. She said the party couldn't risk another slaughtering at the next election. Radical change was a must. From Bournemouth, John Ray reports.
When you're down in the polls and under pressure like no other leader, you can hope honesty is the best policy.
Been a good first day? Great. And there's more to come. You're not the nasty party.
It's been a day for hard-edged realities. In black, the party chairman looked dressed to kill. What she said was meant to shock.
You know what some people call us? The nasty party. In recent years, a number of politicians have behaved disgracefully and compounded their offences by trying to evade responsibility. We all know who they are. Let's face it, some of them have stood on this platform.
Of course, there's no Jeffrey Archer here, but he seems ashamed of so much more. John Major's government dismissed as a void. He has his eyes on the Thatcher legacy. Some of the more radical policies introduced under Lady Thatcher were the privatisation of many of Britain's major industries, reducing the power of trade unions, and the right to buy scheme, which let council tenants buy their homes cheaply. Ian Duncan Smith says he wants to be as radical as Lady Thatcher. His new policies include allowing parents to set up their own schools with government money, letting hospitals set their own budgets and pay for staff, while patients may be offered rebates on operations carried out privately. He's staking much on this, and so far he hasn't been a lucky leader. First base is to get known simply as the leader.
Who is Ian Duncan Smith?
Oh, no. A Prime Minister?
Tory, matey, innit?
Is that right?
The man who still has hopes of leadership is here, but on best behaviour.
I only have to comment on the weather at the moment for it to be either a leadership criticism or a leadership bid. The television can now go away because I am going to make neither on this particular occasion.
Mr Duncan Smith seems to have made a good start here, but one good day at conference won't dispel all the talk of a leadership crisis. John Ray, ITV News, Bournemouth. And tomorrow morning, Ian Duncan Smith will be interviewed live on the ITV News channel on digital, satellite and cable. You can put your own questions to him by visiting our website, itv.com/news. The interview itself is at 8:20. A man who was stabbed while trying to stop a boy he didn't know having his mobile phone stolen has died. He was attacked 4 days ago. Liam Atwell was a chef from Bristol. He stepped in when a gang confronted the boy and a knife was drawn. His friends called him a hero. One said tonight Liam was always ready to stand up for the underdog. Martin Geisler reports.
25-year-old Liam Atwell's bravery cost him his life. Here in central Bristol last Thursday, he saw a gang of youth stealing a mobile phone from a teenager. He stepped in and was stabbed through the heart. After a 4-day fight for life, police are now looking for his killer. This wasn't the first time Liam had acted as the Good Samaritan. Earlier this year, he was assaulted in similar circumstances. Today, his friends paid tribute.
If he sees someone getting in trouble with a bunch of little rude boys or whoever they get in trouble with, really, he'll try and help them out, especially if they're smaller than them. You know, he never stand for bullying.
He didn't even know the people who were getting mugged on the day. And he stood forward, stood up for them, tried to help as best he could.
The 25-year-old was due to marry in May. His mother said his family are all very proud of Liam. He never tolerated bullies, she said. He was always one to stop an incident, and we do not regret his bravery last Thursday. Today, police asked for that bravery to be repaid.
So there's little doubt that this man is inbred in him to come to people's help. And I suppose from that, what I'm asking is the public now to help detect this awful and cowardly attack on this man, which has resulted in his death.
Mobile phone theft was one of the issues at the centre of the government's recent street crime initiative. This latest brutal example illustrating how far some thieves are prepared to go, and so just how far off a solution may be. Martin Geisler, ITV News.
Northern Ireland's power-sharing government was nudged closer to collapse today. Ian Paisley's Democratic Unionists are abandoning it, and even First Minister David Trimble says he doesn't expect the executive to sit again. Here's John Draper.
This evening, Gerry Adams and the Irish Prime Minister met in Dublin, but even as they talked, Ian Paisley's Democratic Unionist Party pulled out of the power-sharing executive in Belfast, signalling its imminent collapse.
The damage done by the departure of unionists, even on a temporary basis, has to be minimised by all the rest of us, and particularly by the two governments.
Mr Paisley's formal announcement tomorrow won't actually kill off the executive, but it's an attempt to force the Prime Minister's hand ahead of this week's talks at Downing Street. It was the police raids on Sinn Féin offices at Stormont and elsewhere that led to the Republicans' commitment to peace again being questioned. The spying allegations involved political and security issues. It said Republicans had personal details of prison officers, police and soldiers of use to terrorists. Political espionage is said to have involved confidential government papers, including minutes of meetings that Unionists had with John Reid, the Secretary of State.
Sinn Féin were reading the minutes of all those meetings. There has been political espionage on a massive scale.
This is the Sinn Féin office in the Stormont Parliament buildings. It's at the centre of all the controversy. It was here that the police carried out their raid last week. The Sinn Féin administrator, Dennis Donaldson, who normally sits at this desk, is currently in prison awaiting trial. In an extraordinary twist, the Chief of Police has apologised for the way the search took place.
I have no difficulty with apologising when the police service gets things wrong. What I would stress, however, is a point I've already made. The need to carry out that search was absolute in my mind.
The last few days here have taken everyone by surprise. The next few may be more predictable, with the almost inevitable collapse of the Assembly. John Draper, ITV News, Belfast.
The threat to Northern Ireland's government. Still to come on tonight's ITV News. A Palestinian mother speaks of Israel's deadly attack. Sunderland's manager Peter Reid is sacked tonight. And a British astronaut lives his childhood dream. All that in a couple of moments when we come back. Welcome back. Palestinian militants have promised to avenge the deaths of 14 people killed last night in an Israeli raid on the Gaza Strip. Most of the dead were killed by a missile fired from a helicopter. Israel says it was attacking a terrorist base at Khan Yunis. Palestinians say the victims were all civilians. From the scene of the attack, our Middle East correspondent John Irvine reports.
There's little physical evidence of the latest Israeli blunder in Gaza, but the rocket that did this exacted a high price in human lives. The missile killed 8 people, and this afternoon they were buried along with other victims of last night's Israeli operation. The raid was a response to Palestinian attacks, but as Israeli tanks rolled into this Hamas stronghold, gunmen took to the streets. Then, when the armour withdrew, ordinary civilians emerged to inspect the damage. It was then the Israeli helicopter unleashed its deadly cargo. This 10-year-old boy and his father were among 65 people treated in hospital. The child's mother saw the rocket as it went into the crowd.
I saw the fire from the sky. I saw it. Okay. And my daughter, my son, blood, my husband, blood.
Even when they reached this hospital, the people injured in last night's rocket attack were not entirely safe. The clinic is just a couple of 100 yards from an Israeli army position, and Israeli soldiers opened fire here last night. This is where a couple of bullets struck a dialysis room. During last night's assault, an Israeli tank ruptured a water main. Another precious reserve being wasted, like the lives of ordinary civilians. John Irvine, ITV News, on the Gaza Strip.
Here tonight, the Sunderland manager Peter Reid lost his job after weeks of speculation and poor results. He's the first in the Premiership to go this season. David O'Leary and George Graham are early favourites to take over. Felicity Barr reports.
After more than 7 years at Sunderland, Peter Reid's become the Premiership's first managerial casualty of the season. He'd been under pressure since last season when Sunderland just managed to avoid relegation. Yesterday's defeat by Arsenal was their 5th loss of the current campaign. And at the Stadium of Light tonight, most fans backed the decision to sack him.
Me, I'm happy. I think he's done all he can for the club and he can't go any further. It felt like nobody wanted to play for him. He wasn't bringing nobody into the club. And basically, I think the ideas were out the window. There was just nothing there anymore.
The former Leeds manager David O'Leary is hot favourite with both the fans and the bookies to take over from Reid, while George Graham is another possible candidate. Reid himself has yet to comment about his dismissal, but is expected to stay in football. Felicity Barr, ITV News.
In a few minutes, a spectacular view of the latest shuttle liftoff on board the 3rd British astronaut to go into space. He's heading for the International Space Station. Those pictures after the news from your part of the country.
Thanks, John. Hello and welcome to the late news from Calendar.
A young mother is tonight facing a lengthy jail sentence after her 2-year-old son died from a lethal overdose of the heroin substitute methadone. The toddler drank the contents of a bottle which had been prescribed to help his mother overcome her drug addiction.
23-year-old Rachel Hipkiss, seen here in the denim jacket, has pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of her 2-year-old son, Ashley. She's a heroin addict and was smoking the drug with a friend at her home in the Hackenthorpe area of Sheffield last December when little Ashley drank a 40-millilitre bottle of methadone, which had been prescribed to his mother to help her kick her heroin habit.
And it was that heroin habit that led to the father of her 2 children gaining custody for a while. But that decision was later reversed by the authorities, who decided Hipkiss was a fit mother. Now tonight, in a statement, Sheffield's Child Protection Committee say they offer their sympathies to Ashley's family and say they'll be carrying out a serious case review into the circumstances of his death. That will be made public in due course. As for Rachel Hipkiss, she'll be sentenced later this month.
2 3,000-ton ships have run aground after breaking free from their moorings due to the highest tides of the year. A tidal rush caused one ship to break free from the jetty on the River Trent at Scunthorpe and hit another vessel. That also came loose and the 2 ships floated downriver before grounding. Meanwhile, on the River Great Ouse at King's Lynn, a 2,000-ton grain ship broke free before coming to rest on mudflats. No one was injured. Jailed peer Jeffrey Archer has condemned conditions inside Lincoln Jail as appalling. Archer, who's serving a 4-year sentence for perjury, was moved to Lincoln from an open prison near Boston 10 days ago.
Archer told his wife of conditions in Lincoln when she visited him there for the first time.
He says that the conditions are appalling, but that the prison officers are fair and decent.
But one of the prison chaplains took a different view.
Depends what you compare with, really. You compare it with the Hilton, they're not too clever, but by comparison with other prisons, they're fairly standard, I think.
So too did one of the visitors to the jail today.
I've been to other prisons that they wouldn't even tolerate you. They look at you like you're just dirt. You're just number to everyone in there. But Lincoln, I think their screws are very, very good.
Archer's complaint came on the day a national newspaper began serialising his prison diaries. He's been criticised for publishing them while still a serving prisoner. Now Archer will eventually be moved back to an open prison, but days may be added to his sentence if he's found to have contravened prison regulations, and that in turn will cause more headaches for the prison service. More time inside means Archer will have more time to put pen to paper.
A motorist has appeared in court charged with manslaughter after a car ploughed into a bus queue in Lincolnshire, killing 2 women. 78-year-old Vera Moss died after being struck outside a supermarket in Gainsborough. 84-year-old Ruth Harrison died later in hospital. A 3rd woman is critically ill. Richard Swain, who's 33 and from Rossington, was remanded in custody by Lincoln magistrates. He's charged with driving while unfit through drink or drugs, while disqualified and without insurance. A week after a retired solicitor was stabbed to death in a Leeds park, police returned to the scene to question passers-by. 53-year-old Christopher Scoley was taking his daily stroll through Cross Flats Park in Beeston in Leeds when he was stabbed through the heart. More than 20 police officers have been back at the park today and have questioned over 100 people to see if they saw or heard anything a week ago today.
I do feel that the answer to this murder lies in the community of Beeston. They have been extremely supportive and cooperative, but I am confident that there is still additional information out there, and I would appeal for anybody that's got that information to contact the police, and it will be treated in the strictest of confidence.
A maths teacher at a South Yorkshire school has been warned that he faces a substantial prison sentence for indecently assaulting 2 pupils. Brian Roberts was found guilty of 6 counts of indecent assault. His first victim, who was just 12, was assaulted at the school during the 1980s. Mr. Roberts, who is 62 and from Rotherham, began assaulting the second victim in 1991. He'll be sentenced at the end of the month. The saga of whether Leeds United will move from Elland Road continued today when the club made a presentation to the City Council. They have 2 options, either to redevelop Elland Road or move to a new purpose-built stadium near the A1-M1 link road. For either plan to succeed, the council would have to approve retail development, which currently falls foul of government guidelines. Now, a remarkable woman from Leeds is celebrating becoming the first person with terminal cancer to take part in 3 major athletic events. Jane Tomlinson faced her latest challenge at the weekend when she took part in the Great North Run with her husband Mike. Earlier this year, she completed the London Marathon and the London Triathlon. She's now taking a break to start a course of chemotherapy, and she remains modest about her achievements.
I'm here looking at things from this side of the fence, and I don't really see what other people see. I think I'm just me. It's just me here, and I haven't done anything. I don't think I've done anything particularly extraordinary.
Well, I think most of us disagree with her. Well, that's all from Calendar for this evening. Now it's back to John for the rest of tonight's ITV News.
Hello again. In a moment, a British astronaut in space tonight. First, a reminder of the main headlines. A 13-year-old boy shot and critically injured in a Washington suburb is believed to be the latest victim of the sniper who's been terrorising the city. The Tory chairman, Theresa May, has told Conservative Party members people think of them as the nasty party. And Liam Atwell, who was stabbed and later died after trying to stop a thief steal a mobile phone, has been remembered by friends today. The 3rd British astronaut in space blasted off from Florida tonight. It was a routine shuttle takeoff, but for one thing. For the first time, a camera was strapped to the top of the external fuel tank to get a unique view of the start of the mission that'll take Piers Sellers into space for 11 days. Lawrence McGinty watched the breathtaking pictures.
They've become almost routine shuttle launches, but not for astronaut Piers Sellers, being strapped in as only the 3rd Briton in space. And this launch had something new from NASA as well. Attached to the big external fuel tank was an onboard camera costing nearly $1 million to show spectacular images of the liftoff.
8, 7, 6, 5, we have both main engines start, 2, 1, we have booster ignition and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Atlantis.
For the first time, we see what it's like to ride into orbit, a view even better than the astronauts. As the shuttle starts to roll, all part of the routine, the Florida coast comes into view. The shuttle's speed builds to 4,500 miles an hour, and the new camera shows condensation streaming off the orbiter's outer skin.
Atlantis already 2.5 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, throttling up.
But then a minor disaster. The solid rocket boosters separate as planned, but the expensive new camera is blinded by exhaust fumes from the boosters. Still, Atlantis is safely on its way to the space station on an 11-day mission. Lawrence McGinty, ITV News.
And that's the ITV News from me and all the team. Good night.